Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Mark Baldwin. They call him the Mongo up in New York City. And Mark, good morning, and how are you doing?
Good morning, Fred. Thank you. I'm great. Thank you for a few minutes here. I'm looking forward to getting to know a little bit more about your career and the station down there.
Right.
What I wanted to start off with, I wanted to ask you about your career. You mentioned that you've been doing radio for 20 years, non-continuously. Tell me how you got into it initially, and a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, when I was in high school, as soon as I graduated from high school, Mark, I was a dispatcher for the Bardstown Police Department. And at that time, this same radio station was up on the other end of town, right across the street from the police department where I was a dispatcher. And I used to spend a lot of time, off time at the radio station. I was always fascinated with radio, and never thought I would end up in it, but I was just fascinated with radio. So the opportunity came around one time. The disc jockey on the station, which was WBRT, he was ill one weekend, and the manager asked me if I knew enough about the radio to carry on a show over the weekend in place of this fellow that was ill. I told him no, I didn't know a thing, but I'd sure as heck give it a try. So that's how I got into it. I was a part-time dispatcher first, and I got into radio, this same station, WBRT. I kind of got into it that way, and I worked at WBRT with my own show for about 7 years. And after 7 years, I had a chance to move out of town to another town and become a sales manager for another town. Well, I didn't like it there. I stayed there a year. Then another opportunity came around that I jumped after. I had a chance to manage a small radio station, a new one that was being put on the air in Lancaster, Kentucky, which was up near Lexington in the Bluegrass area. So I stayed there 2 years, and I don't know. I've been here, there, yonder, and everywhere. I've been into food sales. I was selling carpet at one time. I was out of radio for many years, but I have a total. I had about 8 years in it right here before I left town the first time. But a total, I've got about 20 years in it off and on. And it's kind of strange, too, because one of the fellows that I worked with at WBRT years ago, when I first started, his name was Gerald Smith. He was a disc jockey, too. It was more or less he and I running the whole show. When I got ready to move away, he decided he wanted to go to this town, too, so I got him a job down there as a part-time disc jockey. I was going to be in sales. And he stayed down there and was a disc jockey. Oddly enough, here we are, all these years later. I'm right back where I started at the same station, and Gerald is not a working companion now. He is one of the owners of this radio station, and I'm, in a sense, working for him.
That's funny. It's funny how things go full circle, Fred.
Yes,
now,
that's
with
right.
The Wake Up with Fred show has been quite a sensation up here now, thanks to John Minko mentioning it on WFAN.
Yes.
How long have you been doing the Wake Up with Fred show? How long has that been going on?
Oh, Lord. I've been doing my Wake Up with, well, when I moved back to Bardstown several years ago, I wanted to have something to do. I'd already retired, but I didn't want to just sit around and do nothing. And the opportunity came around. Another radio guy here told the guy who owned this station at the time that I was back in town. So he asked me if I wanted to do a trick on the radio. It's supposed to be part-time. It's turned into more full-time for me now. But of course, I jumped after that because I wanted to get back in radio too. I was ready to go for it. But I was recommended when I moved back in town after I had retired, and that's I was working at the police station with dispatcher when the opportunity came around for the radio. But I've been in and out of all phases of it. Now the party line that comes up here very quickly. That show has been on the air just about the entire existence of the radio station itself. And actually, I started the party line many, many, many years ago, and it was actually a talk show. I would pick out certain subjects that we would discuss every day and had listeners to call in and comment. I stayed away from politics and religion and all that, but it was just general topics and things, and it went over real well. And then over the course of time, after I had left the radio station, moved out of town and everything, it kind of turned into what some people call the trading post. But it's
sure, yeah, and talk radio is big. I mean, radio industry is it's in a transition, and the one part of the radio industry that's actually been able to maintain success is that kind of talk radio, whether it's sports or politics or whatever it may be. Like, up here, WFAN is huge because, like Mike Francesa's show is 5.5 hours of party line, so to speak, but it's all sports stuff. It's not similar to what you're doing, which what you're doing is so unique, and like we're the group, those of us up here who are listening are just fascinated by what goes on, and it's a whole different world, but it's a very quaint world, and it's something that a lot of us can relate to in a way, but also not relate to. But like what I really mean is, it's something different and unique. Like, we're so used to the fast pace and the craziness, and we're all wrapped up in our sports and things like that. But just to kind of hear the more mild and nice way that you and your listeners are, it's very interesting. So it's funny that you created it, and now it's still a thing, and it's a very popular segment, from what I can see.
Well, that's our most popular and most listened to program. It's a very, very busy hour.
Absolutely, I can see it's kind of fast and furious,
Yes, from 10 to 11, and that show has been on the air for years. It's created listeners from just everywhere. We hear, I have one call right after another, just as quick as I can take them, put them on the air. But there are other things going on during that hour too, besides the commercials. I have mailbag, which they'll write in their stuff for me to read because they can't get through on that party line number. I hear that all the time. And they'll then so I've got that to go through. I make about 2 or 3 live calls. Mammy's Kitchen is one of them up here, where the people want to talk themselves about their business. So when you get all this together and all this equipment in here, and here I am trying to ride gain on everything, it's quite it's quite busy.
Absolutely, I could see why you need that hour to prepare right beforehand.
Yeah.
Is that why you do the music for an hour? Like, so you're getting it all ready to go for the party line? Is that how that came about?
You mean between the hour of 9 and 10?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, if I've had phone calls while I'm on the air and have numbers that I have to return, I'll do that between 9 and 10. But I'm actually gathering up my party line, getting it all together. Sometimes I have a recording or two to do in our recording room of news and weather, and that will run all day at the top of every hour, even after I leave the studio. And the nighttime, the nighttime guy, the nighttime guy that comes in, he will do the same thing that I do, and then his will override me and run all night. When I come in the next morning, I do it over, and then mine runs all day long. It's almost like I'm here, but I'm not here.
Right. I hope they pay you extra for that.
Do what? Do what?
I hope they pay you extra for that.
Well, I have the best bosses in the world. They pay me very well to do what I do, and they're as good as gold to me. They really are. I have my immediate boss is Ross Stratton. He's a part owner in the radio station, and the others are Gerald Smith, who I was telling you was with me at the other long ago, and then we have a fellow by the name of Bob Manning who does most of our graphics, and on our internet he creates all those fantastic things that he does with the internet. He's quite a photographer. He has his own recording studio in the basement of his home. He lives in Louisville. But I've got the best bosses in the world. They are very good to me.
That's great. A good boss is hard to find.
That's right.
Now you mentioned that you mentioned on the air that you're number one in Central Kentucky, that your morning show is number one. And how many people do you reach on average in those ratings? Like how many listeners do you have on an average morning?
Yeah.
The Wake Up with Fred show.
Yeah. Well, I have no idea. I'll be honest with you. We just received the Nielsen ratings that came out, and this station alone is so far above our competitors all the way around us here that it's pathetic. But I would like to, I'd like to think that I'm responsible for part of that. Our ratings are better than they've been ever. Right now, we're at the top. I have no idea of knowing how many people. I mean, if you factor in the internet and the AM, the FM, we're on TV. I'll be on TV here on channel. We have our own cable TV station. I'll be on there at 10. I don't know how many. I mean, it's no telling how many people are tuned in. But
now you mentioned that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so you did mention that now that there's different applications. It's not just AM, FM. There's internet. Now you mentioned that you knew people were listening up here in New York. Are you able to see that through some kind of a portal?
No.
Via the TuneIn, or no?
No, I don't. I used to hear from a fella up there who would email me in New Jersey. His name was Jerry, and I don't know what his last name was, but I've heard from people that are listening that have picked me up in Arizona, in Florida, Osaka, Japan. I got a email from Osaka, Japan one time. I mean, I know they're out there, but I have no idea of how many. Now, I know I have probably more listeners than any other station in central Kentucky because they're writing me all the time, emailing me, and I go out. If I go to the grocery store, sometimes it gets so bad that I have to try to disguise myself to get my grocery shopping done.
I hear you. I hear you.
You know, everybody needs
protection over there.
You know, everybody needs a day off every now and then, a little peace. Even the Lord rested on the seventh day.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to. Sometimes I'm sure you just want to stay home on a Saturday and just relax.
Yeah, well, I'm not somebody that wants to go all the time on the weekend. I like my downtime, and I'm at home, and I'm as common as the next guy. You know, at home I'll have a pair of socks on with holes in them and everything else. That's the only way I'm comfortable. I always did say your clothes are not comfortable till they're wore out. I don't throw anything away.
I hear you. There's nothing. Recently it's starting to get a little colder up here, and I have one of my favorite sweatshirts that's just raggedy as anything, and that's the first thing I'll slip on when I get home from work on a cold evening.
Yeah,
that's right. I totally understand it. I can relate to that.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now we connected via the sports radio up here in New York. I want to ask you down there what are the major sports in your area? Like, what are people focused on?
Well, we do local sports, football. Most football's big down here, and we have We have 3 or 4 high schools that we cover the games live. We have sports announcers who do that. They do that, and we carry most of them live, and then sometimes we'll play them back, at a different time. But people, down here local, they want to keep up with the local schools, and so we pack in as much sports as we can. And NASCAR's another thing that we cover a lot of NASCAR. We keep up with the Indianapolis Colts. My boss does. That's his favorite. But, sports is big down here, really. And, that's something that we focus on big time.
Okay. How about you? Are you a fan of any in particular? What are you a fan of?
What is it again?
What are you a fan of, like sports-wise? Are you a big sports fan, or are you? What do you?
Well, I went to the University of Kentucky, and so I've got to say basketball. Would be my best. I'm glued to the TV pretty good during the Final Four. You probably never be able to get my attention for several days if the Final Four is on the NCAA. So I like basketball real well because I was UK, enrolled up there for a while.
Mike Francesa is a friend of Coach of Calipari's, actually, as a matter of fact, and
Calipari.
He had he had him on. It was a funny story. Last year, he had Coach K on the air. He had Calipari on the air, and after he left the studio, Mike started saying, Calipari's a good coach. He's not the best X's and O's coach, but he's a good recruiter and things like that.
Yeah.
And Calipari called in from downstairs, and he called in. What's his first name is? I forget his first name again. Calipari's first name.
John.
John.
Yeah.
So he calls back in the studio as John from Kentucky, as if he was a caller, and he called up and started yelling at Mike, "What do you mean he's not a good X's and O's coach?" So it was really a really funny moment. And like Mike was in on the gag, but like then Mike was like, "Well, why don't you come back up here? We'll talk about it."
Yeah,
it was really funny. But it's funny that you mentioned that because they are actually friends. Besides being besides having covered him, so that's funny stuff.
It seems to me like that I had heard that before, that incident there. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember? You remember Adolph Rupp?
No, I don't.
Okay. He was at that time one of the winningest coaches, in the country. He was big. Okay. He was big down here. Of course, we've had several different coaches up there. It's in Lexington, and all. But
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'd say basketball would have to be my number one. There's not, to me, I don't know, everybody's their own opinion. Of football, there's not enough continuous action. Somebody gets tackled and it takes another 2 minutes for them to get in line again to have another play.
Yeah, and this year in the NFL, there's been a lot of penalties, which has been slowing down the game a lot. So yes, that's been a big thing.
Right.
Right now, yes.
But with basketball,
when the action gets going,
right? Basketball, it's more or less continuous action. And I like that part of it. It's fast paced, and I don't know. I get it. I guess I'm just too impatient to wait till they get their self straightened out to get ready for another play in football. I just want something continuous action. I'm probably my own worst enemy, trying to do things perfect. Sometimes I've been told that, but I feel like anything worth doing is worth doing right.
Absolutely, and you're doing something right with your show because you really you picked up a lot of people up here, and it's really been we've been a lot of us have been listening in the morning and on Twitter sharing our thoughts on the show, and it's been terrific.
Right.
What is your favorite part of doing the show? I just got one last question for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite part of it? Like, what do you like the most?
What do I like the most about my job?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people, they say, I don't know how you can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but that doesn't bother me. The earlier the better, because I was milking cows on the farm at 4 in the morning at one time. Getting up early is nothing new for me. But, I guess the best part of my show is the fact that I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that I have people out there tuned in at 6:30 waiting for me to get them up, put them in a good positive mood, and make them happy to get their day started off right. Because I've been told that so many times. I had a lady once to ask me, how do you stay so upbeat? You sound always so happy. I said, well, I'm maybe not as happy as I sound all the time. I have headaches, migraines sometimes, but I'm not going to air my dirty laundry on the radio because that's not what people listen to me. They expect me to hear me tomorrow like they heard me today. And if they hear me all down in the dumps tomorrow, they're going to be saying, well, I wonder what's the matter with him today. He doesn't sound right. And I don't want that. Consistency to me is most important. I enjoy music, and I certainly enjoy my listeners, and with all the comments, and you wouldn't believe the prizes and the gifts and things that they've brought me here over the years. So
I bet. I could see why, even just listening this past week, I could see why you have a lot of fans, and I could definitely see you can hear it in your voice that you enjoy what you're doing, and that's important.
Well, I certainly do, and usually if you enjoy what you're doing, have good bosses, you're generally pretty good at it, because I'm very contented in here. They just turn me loose and let me do my own thing. They know that I've got sense enough to know what I can say and not say and get by with it with the FCC, and I'm always very cautious about offending somebody. People get offended real easily sometimes, and I stay away from that. I'll poke fun at myself, and I figure that's the best and safest way to do it, because I've got little kids out there, and I don't want their mothers thinking that I'm somebody they've got to keep their kids away from, because their mothers bring them in here to meet me all the time.
Oh, I bet. And yeah, and your show is very wholesome, and they went we got a little close with the when Roth was doing the Rodney Dangerfield stuff this morning, but
yeah, well,
that was about the worst I ever heard on there. So it's really it's not a big deal. It was funny, but yeah,
it was. Well, I won't. If I'm in the gray area on something that I want to do, I shun away from it. I would not take a chance on offending anybody deliberately. And people know me. People that know me down here real well, they know what kind of person I am. And I'm not going to tell you something and do something else, or just they call in here and give me birthdays 2 weeks in advance. I make sure it gets on in 2 weeks with all the paperwork I have to contend with in here, because that's a commitment to my listeners, and they've made me popular.
All right. That's great, Fred. Thank you so much for a few minutes. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to tuning into the party line at 10.
Well, we're getting ready to go here, and I never know what I'm going to get. I'm like a sitting duck on that party line. We don't have a delay system here where, I mean, I've run into a lot of situations where I thought maybe they might be intoxicated and stuff. The best thing I can do is get them on, get them off as quick as I can. You never know what people are going to say, and they're offended real easily sometimes. So I'm like a sitting duck. I've been lucky. I've never had any major problems. I've had some fun
with no delay.
Yeah. No, we don't have the delay system in here. The only delay I've got is me hitting a button, but they could get 1 or 2 words out before that happens. But
I hope that doesn't happen for you.
Well, I've been lucky, and 99% of the people I have no problem with, and I've met a lot of nice people through the radio. And one of these days when I do retire, I'll have lots of memories of the radio, and that's important for me.
Well, I hope that's a long time from now, Fred.
Well,
I'm enjoying the...
Well, I hope it is too. I hope it is too, Mark. And I'll stay in it, I guess, until I just can't do it any longer.
Right. Absolutely, Fred.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. I'm looking forward to getting the audio, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Be good. I've recorded this. I'll be back in touch with you. Okay.
Terrific, Fred. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You do the same, and we'll catch you later.
All right.
Bye now.